We are live. Hello to wonderful human being and children's author, Sarah Aronson. It's so great to have you on the show finally.
Finally, I'm so honored and thrilled and happy to be here.
We met 2 years ago, and I don't know why it took us so long, but perhaps to celebrate your new book. We were waiting a little bit. And before I forget, hold on. Before the spiel. Yeah, it's coming. I have to introduce myself. I'm Mel Rosenberg, and what am I? I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel at the New Books Network, and I'm here with the incredible hat-wearing Sarah Aronson, who is celebrating a new book that came out just 2 weeks ago, and it's absolutely fantastic. The stage is yours, dear Sarah.
Now I'll show it. This is a book about my childhood hero, Bella Abzug, who was a trailblazing lawyer, activist, congresswoman, and all-around leader who people don't remember enough, and who I think will inspire our young girls and boys and kids to hear her story and how she became a leader.
And in this book, I sense that there is some Bella and some Sarah. I see you're also wearing a hat in her honor. As I know you, you're also somebody who speaks out, who talks about justice and doing the right thing. And so there's a lot of Sarah in this book. It's like semi-Bella, semi-Sarah. Anyway, we should mention that it's published by Calkins Creek from Astra, and wonderful illustrations. Do you want to talk about the illustrations for a minute?
The illustrations are by Andrea D'Aquino, who lives in Bella's neighborhood on Bank Street. And the minute I saw these illustrations, when we are asked to trust the process, trust comes in all sorts of different ways. Trust comes in trusting yourself when you're first writing down those words. And trust comes in trusting your peers to give you guidance. And then trust comes in the editor. And then the big trust, if you're a picture book writer, is trusting the illustrator. And so I did not see Andrea's work until I saw sketches. And I was so delighted. I mean, I still cry when I look at the book. I love her art. I love how she makes Bella stand out no matter where she is on the page. That red just pops and draws your eye and makes you think even more deeply about the book.
Enough talking. Show
Sorry.
people the art. Show people the artwork.
Oh, sorry.
Not everybody can see. The people on the NBN podcast.
All right, so here she is in the subway.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the girl in red.
Mm-hmm.
Here she is with her husband. Bella couldn't type, but Martin could. They had an amazing marriage. They were an amazing role model. Here she is raising her hand against Joe McCarthy, who was, just disgusting. We get this. And here, one of my favorite pages is with the women marching.
Incredible.
It's incredible. She captured Bella's energy. She captured Bella's influence and her ability to, what my dad would have said about me, raise a ruckus.
Yes,
all the way to the end, where we see one red arm and a big red hat, paving the way for girls and boys of the future.
Incredible. Let's now go back to the incredible Sarah and talk about your growing up and what you think eventually prompted you to become an author.
What do you want to know first?
How you were born. No, you know what I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, because I believe in this, who is the little Sarah that you're writing to? I really think that all of us children's authors write or should write to the little Melvins and Sarahs inside of us. And because I only write picture book manuscripts, I write to my 5-year-old, but you're all over the place, starting at young children picture books and all the way to adults. So tell us about your complicated life, dear.
So I think that I think that one of the reasons that I write for all ages is because the one thing that I am unwilling to compromise is my creativity. And I see the themes that are important to me, that were important at those pivotal ages in childhood, manifesting themselves in different ages and in different kinds of stories. And as writers, our creativity and our curiosity is the one thing we control. And I'm not really willing to give that up. So I'm stubborn, and I always have been. So stubborn Sarah shows up in that way.
Is there a stubborn 5 or 6-year-old in your biography?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there was a stubborn 5 or 6-year-old, and a stubborn 9-year-old, and a confused 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. I was a Jewish girl growing up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Christmas city. And my house was known as the dark house because we had no Christmas lights. That Hanukkah didn't hold a candle, no pun intended,
Oh,
to the Christmas lights around my neighborhood. And as a Jewish person, as a kid being Jewish, growing up in a community that celebrated Christmas pretty much all year long, unless it was Halloween. Happy Halloween, everyone.
oh yeah.
That is that I felt like an other. I felt different from other kids. I was on the outside. I remember walking to school, and the 3 girls in my neighborhood were Jessie, Jill, and Jamie. And they would walk down the street, Jessie, Jill, and Jamie, Jessie, Jill, and Jamie. And I would be like, Aunt Sarah, please, Aunt Sarah. And for a long time, I tried to have a nickname that started with a more popular letter. I also had to stand up for myself at a young age. And I think that this really speaks to both my interest in Bella and in Rube, that when I was in 1st grade, my mom, busy with 2 younger sisters, had me walk to school on my own. There were 3 blocks I had to walk and one big street, but there was a 6th grade crossing guard there. So it was okay. She felt safe that she felt sure that I would be safe. Well, the crossing guard at the end told me that Jews cross last and held the flag in my face. And every day I was late for school because he would wait for the bell to ring, he would run off, and then I would have to cross the street by myself carefully. And after a while, the teacher called my parents, and then in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, the way that Jews managed disagreements and anti-Semitism like this was to put their heads down and to make no noise. And I understand why my parents wanted me to walk the long way, but there was no way I was walking the long way. So I think little Sarah met little Bella right then and there, because there was no way I was taking the complicated Rube Goldberg route. I was doing the short route. And from then on, my struggles, and if there are any teachers, friends listening whose kids are struggling with reading, I struggled in the beginning. I think because of attention. I think because I was much more focused in fitting in and belonging than I was in being academically rigorous. And my heart was breaking. I wanted to be part of something more. And it wasn't until 5th grade, right after I returned home from England. My dad took 2 sabbaticals when I was growing up. So I lived in York, England.
In New York of all places. Like,
In York of all places.
did you know the terrible massacre of
Yes. Yes,
Jews and
we lived in the shadow of Clifford's Tower.
there was
So,
a cherem for 800 years where Jews were
yes,
not allowed to live in New York at all.
yeah, my mother has studied that her whole life. That coming back from being able to see your world from a distance really made an impression on me. And so I came back with more confidence and more interest in school and more abilities, because the teachers there really tapped into my interest, because frankly, because I wasn't getting grades. I wasn't taking the 11 plus. I was on my own. So they fed me what I wanted to learn. Um, so so I came back, and Mr. Sigley looked at me and later confessed that he looked at me and said, "Why isn't this kid thriving?" And kept handing me book after book after book after book until he hit pay dirt and gave me Harriet the Spy. And I became a reader, and that was the beginning.
How old were
So
you?
I think I was 11. So I was primed right there for curiosity, reading, learning, and I never stopped after that. Did I stop getting in trouble? No, I did not. I got in a lot of trouble as a kid. I spoke my truth loudly and sometimes without knowing why, as kids sometimes do.
And at university, you studied also theater? Did I get that
So
wrong?
I did a little bit of community theater when I was in college. I got an English degree from Rutgers College. Thank you, Barry Qualls, for treating me like an adult. Barry Qualls was my mentor, advisor. He was, I'm just going to call him the king of the English department. I don't know what he saw in me, but he plucked me from that class, encouraged me to apply for the honors program, and invited me over to his house to talk with professors and eat cream puffs. And again, sometimes formal education is the key to success. For me, it was confidence and the ability to make mistakes and talk like we're talking right now about the things that are important to me and to others. So to listen, we all need to listen so much more. To listen, to think about what people are feeling, and then to share what we are feeling. That kind of unstructured education made a huge difference in my life. Of course, though, my career is a Rube Goldberg contraption. I worked for.
My next question, you ran a religious school. You didn't say what kind of religious school. It could be Quaker, Amish. What kind of religious school?
A supplementary Jewish Hebrew school.
Okay.
And
you had every odd job on the
I
planet.
have had every odd job. That I started working for Jack LaLanne. If you remember who Jack LaLanne was, the exercise guy, before Richard Simmons, before Jane Fonda, there was Jack. And I worked for Jack LaLanne for many years. Then I became a physical therapist. I went to physical therapy school, and I worked with people who were rehabbing from traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. And
Sarah, we're gonna have to summarize quickly all of the 100 things that you did before you started
let's just
writing.
move on. Let's move on.
So one day someone said to you, Sarah, I bet you can't write something.
Somebody dared me to write. I was on a spinning bike and they said, you should write a book. And I went home, and my daughter, Rebecca, was reading Esperanza Rising, and my son, Elliot, was reading Bunnicula for the 50th time. He loved that book. He read it every day for a year. So, and I thought the tree is going to grow from the apples. And
so what did you do? What did you do? You started writing.
I started writing. I started writing with lots of confidence. And then I met Deborah Brody. on a Jewish.
According to people who know you and who you quote, you didn't know that much about writing when you started.
I knew bupkis.
Bupkis means nothing in Yiddish.
I knew nothing. People tried to help me. I met Deborah Brody on a listserv. Deborah Brody was a longtime editor in the children's world and one of the founders of Roaring Brook Press. And Deborah, and she has since passed. Deborah taught me to eat dessert first, to write what makes me happy. And I will never, I have forgotten that advice at times, but when I have forgotten it, I remind myself and get back to it. That writing what is meaningful to me, writing what is, what comes from here, writing what I want people talking about is what motivates me.
Okay, but now I'm going to also cite one of the things that you said, which I love, which connects, and that is that you should write as someone playing. The power of play, right?
The power of play.
From having fun, which is great. But I also believe in this, and Stephen Fraser has talked about the joy of writing and so on. But then you also say something which is interesting. You say that in the giant room community genre of children's writing, there is room for everyone. But in the category of traditional publishing, there isn't room for everyone. It's 1 in 1,000 authors or people like yourself who get a publishing deal. So I want to discuss this a little bit further on, but now I want to discuss how you became the 1 in 1,000.
I didn't give up.
Okay.
I didn't give up. I don't think that I have some innate talent.
You do for sure, but I think that there's also a distinction between people who, and I suffered from this for many years. I thought that I wrote really well. And somebody would take a look at something I'd written and say, Melia, no, there's something with the story arc and the use of this stuff. I'm saying, oh, what do you know? I write fantastic. There's some stage where the author has to realize that he or she or they do not know babkas. Did you have that moment?
Yes. So I think that learning how to deal with feedback is the bridge between it's 1 in 1,000 or room for everyone. That hearing what you need to do to make your story more meaningful, more intense, more full of tension and conflict. There's so many things that are in a writer's toolbox, and we can focus on one or another, but we really need to step back and reimagine our stories over and over again until we get them right. I write my books 30, 40 times. So if I thought, and many people who come to me for guidance are sending me a first or a second draft. The people who are in it for 30, 40 drafts, 15 years, 30 years, they don't care how long it takes. They are buoyed by the writing, are the ones that make it. The people who think, oh, I can write a book. I got a good idea. I can do that lickety split. They're the people who often don't get there, or they find a different path, which may be the right path for them. So I feel like when I say there's room for everyone, I mean, if you don't give up, if you listen to feedback, if you find a community, if you are willing to do everything it takes to write, to get that story right. Recently, you were interviewing Jane Yolen. Jane Yolen doesn't give up. Like, she does not give up. And she's
nor her daughter Heidi.
Nor does Heidi.
Who is my mentor, highlights.
I just love her. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Jane. That and they're transparent, that they share their ups and downs, as do I, with people who need to see that it's still out there if they want it. But you can't give up, and you can't stop trying, and you have to listen and try new ways. It is so amazing to work with a writer who is willing to do that.
You also wrote, Sarah, that rejections are connections. What is that about? What is that, Michigas?
So when you write a book, what is your goal? For it to be read.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get that rejection, actually, your book was read. So you should celebrate. I celebrate. I eat a lot of chocolate, to be fair, because I'm celebrating every single step, including my rejections. But you don't know what that rejection will lead to. That rejection can lead to a connection with that editor or agent, and maybe in the future you have something that's right for them. That editor or agent may change roles or houses and may remember you in the future. My book, Beyond Lucky, I had shelved that thing after 45 rejections, and then I met an agent who remembered being the second reader at a house, and still, after all those years, remembered 5 things about my book. I went home that day and read my book. I don't blame them for rejecting it. But I did see what that editor agent saw in a new way. I deleted the manuscript and I wrote it over again and I sold it.
Mm-hmm. And did she become your agent?
No.
But a connection.
A connection. And this community, as big as it feels, is actually very small. So when you are working with other people, yesterday, I wrote to an agent to tell them, I've been working with this writer for a long time, and I think they're ready for eyes. Could you be those eyes? I think you might like them. This community is filled with good people who are trying to help everyone make the connections that they need to take the next step forward.
Okay, so, but in your case, how did your rejection become your confection? How did you find your agent?
My confection. My rejections have become connections with me because they've become people who are still in the business, who I refer to on a regular basis, who read my work and cheer me on, who I might work with in the future. Life is long.
How did you find your agent, Sarah?
I always meet my agents at in-person events. I have never written a full query letter.
Remarkable.
Because I think that my strength is communication face to face. And once I have spoken to someone and have connected with them, then they want to see the work. They know who I am.
Okay, let's now segue forward, because you started really a little, for somebody who's been writing their whole life, you started a little bit late. And also, I mean, if there is such a thing as late, and also your picture books are just the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, right? Correct me.
Yep.
Have you discovered the 5-year-old Sarah you need to write to? What's going on here?
I am very much in touch with my 5-year-old Sarah and 7-year-old Sarah, who was really on the rampage. I'm sure there are many pictures in my mother's house and dad's house of me doing something like this. But I think that the reason how I found the power of play was when my novel writing hit the wall. And I'd written a book that was, well, it might be called edgy or ripped from the headlines. And it went to 4 acquisition meetings without selling. And I needed to take a step back and say, what is it that I want to do? And so I gave myself the power of play challenge. And I took 6 months to write all the things I never thought I could. So picture book, essay, nonfiction, adult, short story. I had envisioned myself as a contemporary YA novelist. And that clearly was not all that I was going to be. And that rule of staying in your brand was tightening me up and hurting my creativity.
Well, not everybody knows this term. Can you expound on it for just a minute? The staying in your brand.
So when a writer debuts with, let's say, a middle grade novel, the market wants you to write another middle grade novel and another middle grade novel so that you have a brand. You are a middle grade novelist. And when I first started, that felt very, very important to success. And I will say that sometimes I think, well, it would have been easier if I had done that because people would know who I am. People are constantly learning who I am. And there's actually a teacher who has written to me many times and said, every time you have a new book coming out, I am so full of angst that you have written that, you've gone too far. Being a writer of a brand also means you may have a house that is interested in all of your work. That has not been true for me. That's a compromise I made to my desire for creativity. So my agent has to send my stuff out in different places because I don't have one particular house that is publishing all my work.
And let's mention your wonderful current agent,
Andrea Cascardi. Hello.
And
we're doing some wonderful things right now.
Yeah, she sold some great books. So now is a good time to talk about Rube Goldberg. I'm floored by this book on so many levels. I know it came out 5 years ago. Let's talk about it. I love it.
Yes. So just like Rube Goldberg was, as a 7-year-old, I first saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and The Breakfast Machine. So everyone pictured Dick Van Dyke and the eggs and the toast going down the conveyor belt. I was floored. All I wanted to do was make Rube Goldberg contraptions after that. I loved reading Rube Goldberg cartoons. My dad, who was a Brooklyn boy, big sense of humor, showed me lots of Rube Goldberg cartoons, some inappropriate, some really funny. Anyway, when I was already published and working on things, and in that Power of Play challenge, I thought, who would I write about if I could write a biography? And a friend of mine had just written a book on Keith Haring. So I was really thinking about artists. And Rube, the idea of Rube came to me. And Rube allowed me to say things that I have felt my whole life about creativity and chain reactions and humor and making stuff and our assumptions. Everyone who hears about my book thinks that Rube Goldberg was an inventor. He was an artist. And I love that he invented nothing.
Can you read from it? And the artwork is spectacular, especially since it's a riff on Rube's own artwork.
That's right.
A few words on this.
So Robert Neubecker drew the artwork. The artwork is spectacular. I think my favorite page, writers, why you trust the illustrator is because if you trust them to do your own thing, you get a page like that.
Yeah, that's my favorite spread there.
I really want to make fabric out of it. Do you want me to read from the beginning?
No, I want you to read that particular spread where the text follows the sewer pipe.
Let's go to the sewer pipe. So Rube's father did not want him to be an artist. So to please his father, Rube went to the University of California, Berkeley, studied engineering, and after graduation got a job with the City of San Francisco Department of Water and Sewers. It was a good job. and it paid well. And that could have been the end of the story, right? And then we have everyone yell, wrong. Rube detested shoveling tunnels in mines 2,000 feet underground. He didn't enjoy mapping sewer pipes either. And he wasn't very impressed with the city's government. Rube still wanted to draw comics for a big-time newspaper. So after 6 months, he quit engineering and started over. And I love reading that. And I love when all the kids yell wrong. But the page post-pandemic that has been the most inspiring has been this page, because the kids see San Francisco burning. And then we say the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco crumbled the city and left many people without jobs and home. In the wake of disaster, it can be hard for people to focus on their dreams. Think about that. We have all lived that. Every kid I read this to is nodding and saying, yeah, it is. And it's even harder to feel hopeful. But here is where we get back to there's room for everyone. Rube didn't give up on his dream, and neither should any of us. That he did what he had to do, and then he took the next step in his career. That's what really inspires me about Rube, is his determination, his gusto, his ability to do more than one kind of comic. His
Sarah,
sense of, pardon?
The sense of, I missed that word.
Gusto?
Gusto and the sense of.
His determination, his ability to keep going, to write different cartoons, to create work that reflected his world. He won a Pulitzer for a cartoon of a house tipping over a cliff with a big Russian bomb over it.
So let's dig into this a little bit more. You and we both talk about, and I interview successful authors, authors such as yourself, with many book deals with big publishers and agents and success. But it's really not guaranteed, nor was Rube Goldberg's success guaranteed, and it often comes at an expense of years of struggling, and nobody guarantees you that at the end of the tunnel there will be a light and an agent and a book deal, or a magazine deal in Rube's case. Do we really do justice to this topic?
I don't think we talk about it enough. I think that we live in a world of instant gratification. I mean, how often do you check your email a day?
You're asking me?
No,
a few hundred times.
Yeah, a few hundred times.
No, but it's down from what it used to be.
Right. So, and we all, and fame feels very different than it did many years ago, where movie stars were not everyone, where where we were all grappling for attention now. And I think that the hard work that goes into this, the trust, the deleting the manuscript, the changing your mind, the approaching work from different ways, is what must be your validation. To expect what you cannot control to validate your creativity is a huge mistake. When you self-validate your experience, I keep a writing journal that just basically says, wrote for 2 hours today, or, read a great book, learned about point of view. The other day recently I finished Lisa Klein Ransom's YA novel For Lamb. And in that book, I learned so much, and I wrote that in my journal. That kind of validation keeps me going, because while Well, some people might call me successful. I just got my second starred review.
It's wonderful.
You know, wonderful. But for a long time, I never got any. For a long time, I didn't earn out. For a long time, I wasn't invited anywhere, but I kept going. And I didn't see those things as proof that I was in the wrong place. I saw those things as goals, aspirations, dreams, put them on the back burner. What was giving me the validation to keep on writing was the writing and the joy I was getting from the writing and the people I was meeting because of the writing. Does that mean I don't ever feel jealous? Of course, everyone does. Does it mean I don't yearn for more stars? Of course, I want more stars. But it's not going to stop me from finishing the next book and the book after that and the book after that. And whatever happens, I think I bat about 250. I write about 4 books, maybe one of them sells. All those books have taught me and have given me a voice that finds its way into the books that do make it.
That's wonderful. So let's talk about the book that's, I hope is going to make it big, your brand new book, Abzuglutely. Please read a little bit from it. And then we'll let the public judge who's talking here, Sarah or Bella.
All right, let's start with a quote from Bella.
Or both.
I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a little kid. I had no role models, but I always thought if I could become a lawyer, I could set things straight. Bella Abzug was never a sugar and spice gal.
I love that line.
I do too.
I love that line.
I was never a sugar and spice gal either.
Exactly. That's a Sarah line.
Growing up in the Bronx in the 1920s, Bella enjoyed trading baseball cards, playing checkers and marbles, and riding her bike. She was fiercely competitive, a whiz kid with a wild streak, and the streets were her playground. She drew graffiti with her friends all over New York City. Her parents trusted her. They were hardworking Jewish immigrants who fled wartime Russia in search of religious freedom and a chance to make a better life. They raised their daughters with music and prayer and a strict moral code founded in Judaism. Charity was important, but it was just a first step. In Bella's family, Tikun Olam, repairing of the world, meant justice, not just for themselves, but for everyone else too. And again, that's what I believe. I don't work just for myself. I don't feel strongly just for me. I believe that we are fighting a fight for all of us. The word "and" has become one of the most important words in my vocabulary because inclusivity is how we are going to find creativity, peace, prosperity, everything.
You can read a bit more.
All right, I want to go forward.
I don't want you to read the whole. I don't want to get an email from Astra.
Okay, I'm going to read one more page, because it's my favorite line. One of my favorite lines. On the streets, Bella joined forces with friends and leading feminists like Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan. Together, they teamed up with 50,000 women in 60 cities around the United States to demonstrate against the Vietnam War and nuclear arms. When Bella bellowed, "All issues are women's issues," people cheered. They knew she was talking about everything from racial and social justice to equal wages, childcare, peace, and protecting the environment. To put it politely, Bella was a trailblazer, a serious woman, ahead of her time. To put it not so politely, this passionate perfectionist was demanding and loud, a radical contrarian, too ambitious to work with. And I think that that's when we look at our Bellas of now, you know, we're still talking about women who have to play by different rules. And Bella showed us you don't have to. And I hope that girls, boys, kids now read this book and say, what do I feel strongly about? How do I want to change the world? And as I've been going to school, from school to school, they've been telling me. It's really inspiring.
It's wonderful. So before we say goodbye, meanwhile, what do you have on your burners these days?
On my burners. So my next book with Astra will be about the great Marty Glickman, who was the voice of New York sports for 55 years. And the reason that I like sports, but before that, he was a sprinter who made the 36th Olympic team and was taken off the relay to please Hitler by the Americans.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
His story is incredible. And his story is incredible and very inspiring. And I found his story in 2012. And it wasn't until the pandemic that I fully embraced everything he lost and the magic that he had to not hold a grudge. I might have held a grudge. I'm also working on on what seems to be growing from a picture book to a chapter book to a middle grade novel about a bunch of kids who live in a Chicago high rise. And I think that's all I can say.
And we have to also mention, we don't have to, but I'd like a sentence or two on your Bubby book.
All right, so Brand New Bubby is a book about blended families. And it's got soup recipes in the back. So if you're a soup lover, I really highly recommend my gazpacho. It's excellent.
Well, who wrote the soup recipes? Whose recipes are they?
They're mine.
Ah, really? All three of them?
All three of them. It was the hardest part of the book. I wrote this book.
It's worth buying the book just for the recipes, you know.
That's right. I wrote this book when I found out that my stepson and daughter were having a baby, and a dear friend with good intentions asked me, doesn't it feel weird because you're not technically related? And I was like, technically, schmecklically. And sometimes writing comes from joy. Sometimes writing comes from curiosity. And sometimes it comes from being really angry about something. So I wrote this really fun book about a little girl whose mom gets remarried and she gets a brand new bubby and she's not really psyched. But, you know, spoiler alert, it will all work out great because family is made of love.
So you and Stephen Fraser talk about writing through joy. And I think for me, it's writing through passion, and not passion in the Jewish sense, if there's a Jewish sense for passion, but in the other sense of pain that I'm prompted to write, and I think a lot of the people I interview, and you now have admitted it publicly, is a lot of our writing comes as some sort of remedy to the pain we feel.
I think that's too. I think that that's very true. I think that we write from our broken selves. We write from what we see as wrong in the world. We write for our dreams, what we hope for is better. And I hope, and what is important to us. When I'm working on a book, I write what's important to me on a big note card and I paste it above my desk so that I never forget the sandbox I'm playing in. Like, I don't give that away. So when I get feedback, I can change lots of things, but what I want to say to readers never changes. There's lots of ways to do that. I do, though, feel that in the act of writing, that when I feel passionate, when I feel vulnerable, frankly, when I feel completely naked, on the page, I am still, that feeling actually gives me joy, because that means I'm doing something worthwhile. That whatever happens to the book, when I am tapped into the things that are most important to me, sparks are flying, brain is swirling, I'm doing my dance, I'm running around, yoga seems to be easier. You know, everything is working when I am honest with myself, saying, this is what I want to write about. This is what I have to say. And I hope that all of you listening can embrace that as well. And when you get that first critique, tell your critiquer, this is what I wanted to say. This is what I'm trying to say. This is what is non-negotiable for me. And they will be able to help you in a more deep way because of that, with that knowledge.
Incredible. You know, usually I ask for some advice for aspiring authors, but you've given so much advice. It's incredible. So it's time to end the show, and it really was a show. It was more theater than, and that's what I love. That's what I love about writing stories and interviews is creating the sense of theater. And you're a theater lady, and it shows in your wonderful writing. So for those of you who've seen the wonderful artwork, run out and buy the book. And for those who are listening on the podcast, take my word for it. The books are gorgeous. The text is wonderful. These are important books. Check Sarah Aronson out and buy her books. She's wonderful. And Sarah, it's been great having you on the show. I've waited for 2 years, and we've done it. And when your next book comes out, please feel free to pick up the phone.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Everyone keep going. Don't give up. You have a story to tell, and people need to hear it.
Absolutely. So before I forget,
Abzuglutely.
Abzuglutely. And I am Abzuglutely Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And I've been here with the marvelous, wonderful, amazing Sarah Aronson. Take care, dear.
Take it easy. Thank you so much, Mel.
Keep hanging the signs up on your wall and following them.
I will. You do too.
I shall.